Hey there, good morning. Welcome to the Jeep Solid Garage. So today we're going to be replacing all the tie rod ends and drag links on my Project 92 YJ. And if you're new to my channel, that's what I'm all about, helping you guys save money doing repairs yourself. And you can save a lot of money doing your own repairs. So let's check this out. So on my Project Jeep here, I've slowly been replacing a lot of parts. I recently did the ball joints and those turned out great, but today we're focusing on the tie rods because all the tie rods on this are just completely worn out. As you can see here on the right outer boot, this thing is just torn, dirt and debris are getting in there. It's not doing its job. And down here I've got all the parts ready to go. So here we have our left outer, the tie rod at the pitman arm, the right inner, and the right outer tie rod. And I'll be sure to list all these parts that I'm using in the description below. You can find a link down there for them that fit on your YJ. So I'm ready to get started, and I was going to say the very first thing you want to do is disconnect your battery, chock your wheels, get your Jeep up on some jack stands because we're going to take the tires off. But honestly, the very first thing you want to do is hit all the joints, all the nuts and bolts with a little bit of magic juice, because this is going to make removal of all these tie rod ends a lot easier. There we go. Now we can let that PB blaster kind of sit on those bolts and joints. That really helps loosen things up. Alright, we're going to start out by removing the drag link end here first. So on the back side here, I'm just going to pull the cotter pin, get the, where are we at? Now because we're going to be reusing this steering damper, we're not replacing it right now, we want to protect the threads on this. So you don't want to take the nut off and just start beating on the stud there, because you can actually mushroom it and kind of ruin the threads. So let's back this nut off just a little bit. But we're going to leave it on there to give us something to strike on. And actually there's so much flex in here we might have to, yeah. Sometimes I'll slip a little 2x4 behind it to give it a little brace there. There we go. Get this cotter pin out, this castle nut off, and then we'll have our whole tie rod and drag link ends, the whole system removed, so we can go ahead and start taking it apart easily. This tie rod here, it actually looks like it's in pretty decent shape. So the previous owner must have replaced this one, obviously at some point, but didn't get any of the others. Which, if you're doing them, honestly just do them all. You know, I might actually end up saving this one just in case. So let me protect the threads on it here. There we go, our entire drag link tie rod assembly. So now we can start taking the ends off of it and get everything measured up. All right, let's get this drag link off this tie rod here. Yeah, those tie rod ends are in pretty bad shape. All right, let's work on the drag link end here first. Now, a couple of things we're going to pay attention to. Notice how these guys are offset from each other. So that guy pointing off to the right, This guy is pointing kind of up to the left there at, I don't know, what's that, like a 45-degree angle, so we're going to pay attention to that. But also, we're going to take a lot of key measurements. We want to make sure that we get everything back in alignment. So as we're taking this apart, we're going to measure from the very center of that drag link end to the very center of this one. We're going to write down the exact measurement, but also we're going to measure from the end of the sleeve right here to the center of the drag link end. And the same thing on this side. We're going to measure from the end of the sleeve to the center of the drag link. So we're going to end up with 3 different measurements there. Okay, so I got an overall length of 30 and 5/16, and then that drag link end was 3.5 inches to the center of the dragging link end from the end of the sleeve there. And then this side we are at 3 3/8 from the center to the start of the sleeve there. And the last thing we're going to do, so we're going to go along and we're going to loosen up these crush sleeves. We're going to loosen that bolt, and we're going to loosen this guy. But then as we take these guys out, we're going to put it in a vise here, take these guys out. We're going to pay attention to how many revolutions it takes to pull this out. And then we're going to put our new in the same amount of revolutions. But the trouble is the threads can be a little bit longer or shorter on your new equipment versus your old, so you can't really rely on the thread method. I just use it as a way to double check. So that was about 31 revolutions. Let's match up the threads on our new one, see if we'll get anywhere close to 31. In the meantime, I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. So here obviously I have my old one and my new one. And the new one, the threads are pretty darn close, but it might be off a thread or two. But I know that 31 revolutions, getting this new one on, will be pretty darn close. Now we're just going to repeat that exact same thing on the other side. And one key to remember, this one here, this is the one up at the pitman arm. This one is reverse threaded, so we're actually going to go clockwise to pull it out. And as we're getting ready to put our new tie rods in there, one smart little tip, get a little tube of anti-seize. Hit the threads with that a little bit, so if you're ever doing this project again, or the next guy doing it, it'll make it a lot easier for him. Or if you ever have to make adjustments to your alignment, just make things a lot easier to adjust. Okay, exactly 3.5, and my overall length should be 30 and 15/16, maybe a tad long. Okay, we got the drag link all assembled. Let's get our other tie rod up here, and we're going to take this apart because we got to save this sleeve here. And before we start taking anything apart, we're going to measure the overall length of the tie rod, but also we're going to pay attention to how far it is from the end of the sleeve to the center of the tie rod here, but also the threads down here on this end of the sleeve as well. This is a little thing we're going to save. Looks like the previous owner did not get it back quite properly. It's supposed to pinch around this little bar here. They got one of them on right, this other one's not quite in the right spot. But let's measure it and take it apart. Okay, so I need you to hold this tape measure right in the center of that grease fitting, that little nipple right there. So it is 52 and 1/16. So here we have 8 and 3/32, and then from this side of the sleeve here we have 3 and 9/16. So my overall measurement from one side of the sleeve and the other side of the sleeve.
1 hour each day, and I took like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Love you.
Me too. Okay, I need you to hold this tape measure, the end of it right in the center of that hole. Okay. Okay. All right, that'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. So I need to wash my hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, got it all done. All my measurements are correct. Everything worked out perfect. Before I tighten this sleeve down though, this is still loose. I'm actually going to set it in place because I just want to make sure that I don't get it twisted at all. And by that I mean the two tie rod ends on the end, on each end, are lined up with each other. So we're just going to put it in place real quick. Oh, my glove. Okay, now that they're lined up, I can go ahead and tighten down this sleeve here. All right, now let's drop the drag link end here. Oh, I got my steering wheel turned way over. Back that back off. All right, let's see if that's closer. Too much. We will just manually move it over. I wonder if I can still move it. Oh, yeah. There we go. Drop our steering damper back in here. Need to replace this guy too. Another project, another day. All right, that is starting to look really good. I'm thinking it's gonna drive a lot nicer. So let's go along now and torque everything. So the tie rod to steering knuckles, we're gonna go 35 foot-pounds there. 35 foot-pounds on the drag link to the tie rod there as well. And on that end, same thing, 35 foot-pounds on that castle nut. And then here at the drag link to the pitman arm, we're going to go 60 foot-pounds. And here at the steering damper, 30 foot-pounds. Then we'll get the cotter pins in all those as well. All right, so now we're going to go around and grease up all these fittings, and we're looking for the boot on there just to kind of start to bulge out a little bit. That's when we know it's full of grease. Then we'll throw our wheels back on, torque those to 100 foot-pounds. Be sure to check out the description below. I'm going to link all of these tie rods and some of my favorite tools down there. Thank you guys for watching and have a good day.